Hey guys, and welcome back to a brand new video. Today, we're gonna be color grading, and I never thought I'd say this, iPhone log footage. This is the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and I have just come back from a beautiful little trip shooting a whole load of iPhone log footage. And today, I'm gonna walk you through exactly how you can color grade your own iPhone log footage and turn it from something like this to a little something a bit more usable, something like this. So anyway, without further ado, let's dive into Premiere Pro and let's get this video started. Okay, so this is the clip we are gonna be working with. This is of my good friend Elsa. And yeah, this was shot in Portugal on the beautiful Algarve coast. And we're gonna be color grading it. As you can see, it's very flat. There's not much going on, but arguably that is what you want out of a log profile. Now, if you can't shoot log just yet, you need to dive into your camera settings and go to formats and then make sure Apple ProRes log is turned on, and you'll be good to go. Now, just before we dive into the color grade of this video, something that you may or may not know, usually you need to overexpose your log footage. If you've shot on a Canon camera or a Sony camera before, you need to overexpose your log footage, and that's to make sure you can bring all the contrast back later when you're color grading. With iPhones, you don't need to do this at all. iPhones are just nailing the exposure all the time. So in my opinion, and from my experience, I just leave the exposure set to 0 and I'm sorted from there. Okay, so just don't worry if you're over or underexposing, just leave it normal and you're fine. Okay, with that now out of the way, the settings and the exposure, now we can get started on the color grade. Okay, so back into Premiere Pro. Like I said, this is the shot we are color grading, and first things first, we want to be jumping over to color. Now, chances are you might be in assembly. We want to be heading over to color. And this is going to bring the Lumetri color tab open. And this is where we can make all of our changes. So I'm going to be starting off with a correction LUT. I can't lie, color grading iPhone log footage from absolute scratch is actually a little bit challenging. So I've made my own correction LUTs. I've got 5 of them. They're incredibly affordable. They're $5 for a pack of 5. If you want to check them out, you can do so in the link below. But I'm going to hit input LUT, hit browse, and then I'm going to select my log conversion number 5, and then that just takes our footage from this to this. Now, of course, this isn't perfect, and it's not going to be rock solid perfect on every single clip. You are going to have to do a few little adjustments. Sometimes the white balance of your shot might have been off. Sometimes the light balance of your shot is going to be off, whatever it may be. Either way, we are going to do a little bit of changing and correction. And of course, we're then going to add a little bit of style and flair through masking and this, that, and the other. So anyway, we're going to get our footage to a workable point, which is where we are right now. And now we can continue. So first things first, the first thing I want to do is I want to warm up the shot just a little bit. Nothing too crazy, but I want to warm up the shot a little bit. And something that I've definitely noticed with iPhone log footage is they always have so much color in the highlights, which is something I really don't vibe with whatsoever. I'm also going to increase the contrast a little bit, and I'm going to drop the shadows ever so slightly as well. So now we've gone from this to this. Things are looking fairly good. We might have a little bit of a pinkish hue, but we'll come back to that a little later. We're going to remove this kind of yellow and blue, weird, not nice looking sky. The clouds and the conditions on this day were far from ideal, so I would kind of expected to have a few little hiccups, goodness me, then a hiccup, in the color grading process. But the way we're gonna remove all of this from the sky is we're gonna come down to Luma versus Saturation in the Curves tab here in Lumetri Color. We're gonna come down to Luma versus Saturation, and this, what we can do here is this is controlling if things in the whites and then the highlights and then the midtones are saturated. So we're gonna cut the, we're gonna add a point here and cut off anything below here so the midtones and shadows are not affected. Then we're gonna come over to this side and we're gonna drop this. And as you can see, all of that goes away, that weird yellowish hue, I should say. And now things are looking great. So I'm happy with how things are looking. And yeah, I mean, you could do this to the shadows as well. And then all of a sudden, well, that doesn't really work all that well. But as you can see, I guess there's more color in the midtones than there is the shadows. But this is a really powerful tool. I use this all the time. So that's that sorted. Things are looking nice. Now we're gonna come into the tone curve right here, still in the curves tab. And we're gonna just put a point on the shadows and drop them ever so slightly, then a point on the highlights and increase them. I really like the idea of having the highlights blown out here and little to no color in the highlights, because if we have a look at the before and after, we've already pretty much got no real detail in the highlights anyway. So I'm happy to blow them out. It's a very contrasty shot anyway. I'm very happy with it. So this is where we're at so far. Things are looking very nice. We're now going to come into hue versus saturation first, and we're going to plot some points in the yellow markers and in the blue markers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the saturation down of the blue, and this is going to remove a little bit of blue from her shirt, a little bit of any remaining parts in the highlights, and anything to do in the shadows. And then we're going to do the same thing with the yellows, because I do feel like the yellows are quite prominent here. We're then going to zoom in, and what this is going to do is this is going to highlight the skin here. Now, if we have a look at before, skin's looking fine. I mean, it's log, so sure, it looks really flat and desaturated. But afterwards, because her skin was in the shadows, things can sometimes get a little bit strange. But what we're gonna do here is we're gonna come to hue versus saturation. Oh, no, sorry. We're not gonna do hue versus saturation just yet. We're gonna do hue versus hue, and we're gonna drop a point on the skin right there. And then what we can do is just correct this slightly. All it needs to do is shift over to the orange side of town a little bit more, and then that's it. If we turn it off, you can see it's a little bit red. If we turn it back on, it's very, very subtle and very slight. But when it comes to skin tones, you don't really wanna be pushing or pulling things too far ever. So yeah, just make sure they look good and accurate, and then we're sorted. So now we can come back out to fit, zoom out, and now in my opinion, this shot is looking very, very nice. So I'm happy with how things are looking. We are then going to close up the curves tab, and we're going to dive into the color wheels and match. I'm just going to add a little bit of a blue hint into the highlights, and then a little bit of a warm hint into the midtones. This is going to really start to sell that orange and teal vibe. And by adding that warm tint into the midtones, I hope we haven't really affected the skin tone all that much. If we turn this off and back on, it's just a little richer. I don't think it gets any redder, if you will, but maybe we can come here and we can just drop this a little bit more, just like that. Sometimes there's a little push and pull play here, curves, color wheels, wherever it may be. And either way, I think things are looking tasty there. Very happy with the color grade so far. Now what I'm gonna do is we're actually gonna leave the vignette for right now. This was more or less all the little stylistic touches to the color that I wanted to make. And if we watch this clip back, and just a quick little heads up, when you are shooting iPhone log, I made this very simple mistake. I didn't lock my exposure, which is something you need to do, because if I play this clip back, you're gonna see some exposure changes, especially in this part down here. That's not the camera doing anything weird. That's not the color grade doing anything weird. It's just the iPhone changing the exposure and updating it. So yeah, you wanna make sure you turn that off. Well, you just wanna make sure you lock your exposure, and then you're gonna be fine. But unfortunately for me, for this clip, even though I like it a lot, this is where we're at. So as you can see, like, there's a clear difference between this exposure and that exposure. This is much darker. This is much, much nicer and easier to work with. So we're gonna leave it on this frame for now, but yeah, either way, I wanted to use this clip for this video because I feel like it's a very, very powerful clip. We've got skin tones, we've got a subject, we've got a person, and then we have an amazing landscape behind her, and we're shooting in very, very harsh lighting conditions. And if we can recover this shot, then we should be able to recover any shot. So yeah, I'm not saying we're saving this shot. It's a good looking shot, but you get the idea. So, all right, last but not least, just before we move on to the masking side of town, we're going to just increase the shadows a little bit, just a little bit, because we are going to be dropping the shadows in the masking. But anyway, okay, we've done the shadows. Let's move on to masking. So when you're masking inside of Premiere Pro, I'm just gonna close that, collapse that. We are just gonna be adding new Lumetri color effects, and every single color effect, every single Lumetri color effect is going to be a new mask. So I'm gonna mask around her just like this. We are going to simply just add a bit of a vignette. But the difference with this vignette is, instead of getting all four corners, I'm gonna zoom this all the way up, and then we're gonna zoom this all the way down. And now what we're gonna be doing is we're not going to be hitting these corners. I only wanna be hitting the bottom corners where I believe should be darker. I don't wanna darken the sky whatsoever. I'm happy for that to be overexposed. So I can now invert this. I'm gonna increase the mask feather to make that nice and blendy. We're gonna increase the mask expansion, and now we can come in here and drop the shadows just a little bit. We can drop the exposure as well. And as what we might be able to do here is kind of bring this in just a touch. We don't really move, the camera doesn't move all that much. So this is just gonna darken this area in here. We can darken that quite a lot. Click off there. I think I like how this mask, it definitely brings a lot more focus in. There we go. Just darkens the bottom of that shot a little bit. I know it's subtle, but a lot of the times you don't want to be making giant changes. Subtle stuff is always where it's at least it is for me. Oh, I'm gonna come back to effect controls up there. We're gonna add another Lumetri mask in here. Well, Where are we? Come back here. There we are. Okay, so we're going to close the one we just added, and now we're going to add another Lumetri color effect, and we are going to add a mask just like this. We're going to come from where the light is coming from, and this time it's not going to be inverted. We're just adding this over this area here, where of course we're going to increase the feather, and we're going to increase the expansion to make that all nice and blendy. And then we're just going to increase the exposure, and it's going to give a nice little haze over that area, especially over this rock right here. We can also increase the shadows, which isn't really going to play with the highlights all that much. Maybe we're better off doing that. We can also increase the blacks a little bit. I'm just going to increase the contrast as well. So now we are looking at just a little bit of an ad. To be honest, I might have pushed this just a little bit too far. We might, oh, definitely not 5. 0.1, very subtle. Like I said, we like subtle, we like calm. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty much done with this color grade. The only thing I might do is just add one more mask. So we're gonna add another Lumetri color effect. We're gonna come in here, and now this time, we are going to, we're going to keep all 4 corners. I might have made that a little bit too big. We're going to keep all 4 corners of the shot here. We're going to make this a little bit bigger like that. Okay, we're going to make it a little bit smaller. There we are. Just like this. We can get a little bit of the sky out of there. We're going to invert it to make sure we're selecting the outside, increase that feather, increase the expansion, and then we're going to just drop the shadows quite a bit more, drop the exposure a little bit as well, not too much. I don't want to undo what we just did in that area there. But now we have gone from pretty much, whoop, put that back on. We've gone from this all the way to this in a matter of minutes. Guys, the iPhone log footage potential is insane. And to be honest with you, like if I just zoom out here, I've got a load of other clips in here. Like let's have a look at these ones up here. This is iPhone log. Before, after, no masks. This is also iPhone log. Before, after, no masks. This is also iPhone log. Before, after, no masks. This is also iPhone log. Before, after, no masks. And these clips in this whole timeline is what I made my conversion LUTs from. So I'm super happy. Last one for you. This is iPhone log. Before, after. I love iPhone log. I'm a huge fan. Am I getting rid of my R5C? Absolutely not. But this is going to be getting a whole lot more use. So anyway, guys, that's going to wrap up today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you're new around here, a subscribe would mean the absolute world. If you learned anything from today, let me know what it was in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.